Hello students, in this class we are going to discuss Einstein's mass energy equivalence. Now here energy changes in a nuclear reaction can be determined by using the Einstein's equivalence. Einstein's equivalence. We know what is the Einstein's equivalence equation, that is called E is equal to mc square. E is equal to what? mc square, where E is corresponding to energy, that is equivalent to the mass of m, and where C is called velocity of the light. Where C is called what? Velocity of the light. Now let's suppose for a change of mass 1 AMU, when there is a changing of mass 1 atomic mass unit, then according to which what will be the energy change. Now here we know 1 AMU value, that is equal to 1.66 into 10 raised to minus 27 kilograms. And one more important constant parameter, that is the speed of the light, which is equal to 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. By replacing the mass and velocity in this expression, that is E is equal to mc square, okay, you will get the energy corresponding to 14.923 into 10 to the power minus 11 joules. Now in terms of electron volt, 1 electron volt will be equal to 1.602 into 10 raised to minus 19 joule. So if you convert this joule in terms of electron volts, you will get 931.5 into 10 raised to 6 electron volts. And one more important thing, 10 to the power 6 electron volts, nothing but 1 mega or million electron volts. 1 mega or million electron volts, that is equal to 10 to the power 6 volts. So ultimately the energy corresponding to 1 AMU, the energy corresponding to 1 AMU will be equal to 931.5 million or mega electron volts. So this is a very important relation regarding the 1 AMU versus energy. Are you getting my point? So what is the relation here? 1 AMU will be equal to 1.66 into 10 raised to minus 27 kgs. Otherwise in terms of energy, 931.5 mega or million electron volts. Okay. Now here what is the definition of a mass defect and binding energy? Now here whenever a nucleus is forming from its constituent nucleons, that is nothing but protons and neutrons, there must be some mass difference. Actual mass of the nucleus and experimental mass of the nucleus, if you observe these two, there is some difference. That difference is called mass defect. The mass defect is the difference of the mass between the sum of the masses of the nucleons and the actual mass of the nucleus. Remember, the actual mass of a nucleus will be always less than the sum of the masses of the nucleons, that is the proton and neutron. The mass defect will be taken as the total masses of the nucleons, that is the sum of the mass of the protons and neutrons minus of actual mass of the nucleus. Actual mass of the nucleus. Do you know what is the mass of one proton? mp, which is equal to 1.007276 AMU, and mass of one neutron, that is mn, will be equal to 1.008665. Mass of neutron slightly greater than the mass of the proton. Let's suppose number of protons A and number of neutrons will be B. So what will be the total mass of the nucleons? A into mp plus B into mn. Are you getting my point? This is nothing but the sum of the mass of the nucleons minus of what is the actual mass here? M. What is the actual mass here? M. That will be equal to delta M. Delta nothing but the change. Delta nothing but what? Change. Okay. So this will be the mass defect. Okay. Remember, in the formation of a nucleus, it is a spontaneous phenomena. The essential condition for the spontaneous formation of a nucleus from the nucleons, the necessary condition should be the actual mass of a nucleus, just now I told you, should be less than the sum of the masses of the protons and neutrons, that is nothing but the nucleons. Okay. Now in the nucleus, there are protons and neutrons. If you observe in the nucleus, there will be a strong nuclear forces. These strong nuclear forces are very strong and short distance forces, and the ranging between 1 to 10 Fermi. 1 Fermi nothing but 10 to the power minus 13. 1 Fermi nothing but 10 to the power minus 13 centimeters. Are you getting my point? Now these forces are acting between proton neutron and proton neutron. All these forces are attractive forces irrespective of the charge of the nucleons. You may have one doubt, proton has positive charge, so proton they have like charges should undergo repulsion, but it is not true regarding the nuclear forces. Irrespective of the charge, there is always attractive forces between the nucleons of a nucleus. Due to the strong nuclear force of attractions, what happens? The potential energy of the system, that is the nucleus, decreases, and which will be appear in the form of the mass defect. Okay. Now come to the next one, binding energy. It is the energy liberated during the formation of a nucleus from its constituent nucleons. When one particular nucleus is forming from its constituent nucleons, then how much of energy releases? That is called binding energy. Otherwise, the amount of energy required to separate the nucleus particles into constituent nucleons. That is the how much of energy releases during the formation of a nucleus. Same amount of energy required to break the nucleus into constituent nucleons. Such energy known as a binding energy. Now the binding energy, to calculate, we have to calculate the delta M, that is nothing but the mass defect. Delta M nothing but the mass defect, and where C is called speed of the light. Okay, as the number of nucleons increases, the binding energy value also increases. Now the binding energy calculated per nucleon, the binding energy calculated for each nucleon is referred as a average binding energy. How to calculate the average binding energy? The total binding energy divided by total number of nucleons. What is the total number of nucleons? Nothing but the mass number, that is the number of protons and neutrons is called mass number. So if you divided the total binding energy by total number of nucleons, that is the mass number, you will get the average binding energy of the each nucleon. Now the stable nuclei having a binding energy ranges in between 7.8 to 8.8 mega electron volts. The highest binding energy value corresponding to iron 56. What is the highest binding energy corresponding to iron 56? And whose value will be 8.7 mega electron volts. That is the reason why iron will be available in the earth crust in most abundant form, and also it is thermodynamically most stable nuclei. Due to its highest average binding energy. Okay. Now come to the next topic, types of nuclear reactions. In nuclear chemistry, there are mainly two important reactions we have to cover. The first reaction will be called nuclear fission. In this nuclear fission, what happens? A heavy nucleus will be split into two main fragments of lighter nuclei, and several neutrons will be liberated along with a huge amount of energy. Are you getting my point? A heavy large nucleus split into two fragments of lighter nuclei and some neutrons along with huge amount of energy. Let's suppose here we have best example. What here? Uranium. Atomic number will be 92 and mass number will be 235. It is bombarded with neutron. It is bombarded with whom? Neutron. The heavier nucleus of uranium split into barium and krypton, two lighter nuclei fragments along with what? 3 neutrons along with some energy. Okay. Now this type of reactions are used in the atom bomb construction. Used in what? Atom bomb construction. Now this is a very important reaction. This reaction is a chain reaction because the so liberated 3 neutrons again they have collide with 3 other uranium nuclei to generate the 9 neutrons. and each neutron again collide with each uranium nuclei. So this is a chain reaction. Okay. Next number 2, nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion. It involves the formation of a bigger nucleus by the fusion of a lighter elements. This is reversed to the nuclear fission. Nuclear fission, a heavier nucleus split into 2 lighter fragments, whereas here in this nuclear fusion 2 or more lighter elements will combine to form a bigger nucleus. Example, we have proton H11. So proton combine to give heavier nucleus, that is helium-24, and 2 positrons along with certain amount of energy. Are you getting my point? Now the important application, this is here high temperatures are required in this nuclear fusion reaction, because here hydrogen like atoms, that means they have proton. So hydrogen nothing but the proton. So due to when we are adding these lighter nuclei, there must be some repulsive force. In order to overcome the repulsive force, we have to supply much more energy. That's why nuclear fusion reactions will take place only at high temperature. And one more important application here, if you see the hydrogen bomb construction, it is based upon the nuclear fusion. Atom bomb construction based on the nuclear fission. Hydrogen bomb construction is based on the nuclear fusion. Okay. Now, what are the applications of radioactivity? The main important application of radioactivity, carbon dating method. In this carbon dating method, what we have to find? We have to find the age of the dead animals, age of the dead plants or dead trees. Are you getting my point? Now in this what happens? The cosmic rays which are present in the upper atmosphere, they collide with the atoms to give the high or fast moving neutrons. These neutrons possess high energy, that's why they have very fast moving, they have more high kinetic energy. Such neutrons, when they collide with the nitrogen-14 atoms in the atmosphere, highly moving, fast moving neutrons, they bombarded with nitrogen-14 present in the atmosphere to give the carbon-14 atom. Carbon-14 is a radioactive element, isotope. We know carbon has 3 different types of isotopes: carbon-12, carbon-13 and carbon-14. Out of these 3 isotopes, carbon-14 is only radioactive isotope. Are you getting my point? Radioactive isotope. Now here nitrogen-14, when it is bombarded with a heavier fast moving neutron, it will give carbon-14 along with 1 proton. Are you getting my point? Now in this what happens? In the atmosphere, the carbon-14 will combine with atmospheric oxygen to give carbon dioxide, where carbon has 14. Carbon mass number is what? 14. Now this carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere was absorbed by the plants during the photosynthesis. During the photosynthesis, plants what they do? They absorb the carbon dioxide and they release the oxygen gas. Once the plants or trees absorb the carbon dioxide during the photosynthesis. Okay. From these plants, what happens? Animals eat these plants to take up the C14. Okay. That means ultimately the carbon-14 will be present in the animal as well as in the plants. Okay. Now you see the ratio between the C12 and C14. If you see, there are, let's suppose 10 to the power 12 C12 atoms. There is a 1 atom of C14. 1 atom of C14. So this is the combination of C12 and C14 in the atmosphere. Are you getting my point? There is a 1 atom of carbon-14 for every 10 to the power 12 atoms of carbon-12. That means this ratio, that is the carbon-14 to the carbon-12 ratio, is constant in the atmosphere. Is constant in what? Atmosphere. Are you getting my point? Let's suppose plant or an animal eventually die. so no longer able to take up the C14. Suppose any plant is there or any animal is there, after death it cannot absorb the carbon dioxide. Let's suppose any plant is there, after death of the plant no more photosynthesis. That means the plant cannot absorb the C14 in the form of carbon dioxide. Then what happens? From the death of the plant or animal, what happens? The C14, which is a unstable radioactive isotope, undergo disintegration. After the death of the plant or animal, what happens? The C14 will undergo dissociation, and which is returned back to give the stable N14. Because from the nitrogen 14, initially C14 is formed. When the C14 now it is dissociated, again it will give what? N14 and beta decay. That is the beta particle emission. And one more important particle here, electro-antineutrino. There is one more particle will be liberated. Are you getting my point? That means here the ratio between the C14 to C12, it is not constant, because whenever the plant or animal will be live, that means definitely it absorbs the carbon 14 in the form of CO2. Okay, that means the C14 to C12 ratio will be constant. But after the death of the animal or plant, the carbon C14 will not absorbed by the plant or animal. In that situation, what happens? The C14 will undergo decay, due to which the carbon 14 amount will be decreases as compared to carbon 12. The ratio is not maintained constant. So the ratio now what happens? Decreases. The ratio what happens now? Decreases, because C14 value undergo decay into N14. Are you getting my point? Now, how to find the age of a dead animal or a plant? We know the radioactive disintegration follows first order kinetics. Lambda is equal to, that is a decay constant, 2.303 by T log of initial concentration N0 by concentration of radioactive substance at a time interval T, that is called N. From here we have to find the time period. So time period T is equal to 2.303 by lambda, that is dissociation constant or decay constant, log of A0, that is the initial concentration, and AT is the time concentration of a radioactive element at a time interval T. So A0 is called what? Activity of a fresh wood or wood of plant or tree. And AT will be the activity of a old wood. AT will be the, after a certain time of interval, activity of a old wood. Okay, lambda is called decay constant. Lambda is called what? Decay constant. Are you getting my point? Now, before going to calculating the age of a dead animal, we have to first calculate the lambda. What is the lambda? Decay constant. So decay constant corresponding to here carbon 14. So from the half-life period, that is a T50 is equal to 0.693 by lambda. Okay, once we know the T50, we can find the lambda. Yes. After getting the lambda, we can find the time period. Yes. So what is the half-life period for carbon 14 isotope? 5770 years. That means if you take the 1 gram of a carbon 14 to become 50%, that is 1 by 2 gram, how much of time taken? 5770 years. Are you getting my point? Suppose if the 1 gram carbon is taken C14 to become 1 by 2, that is called 5770 years. Okay. Let's suppose further there is a one more half life, 1 by 2 become half, that is 1 by 4. There is a one more half life, that will be 5770 years. Are you getting my point? That will be given in the question. Okay. Now the second application of this radioactivity to determine the age of the rock, mountain, minerals. Okay. To find the age of a rock or mineral, first of all, in a rock or a mineral, what happens? Uranium plus lead. The combination of these two elements will be present in the rock or a mineral. Okay. Now uranium, atomic number 92 and mass number 238, which will undergo radioactive disintegration to give lead 82 and 206. By loss of 8 alpha particles How many alpha particles? 8 alpha particles and 6 beta particles. How many beta particles? 6 beta particles. We know how to calculate the number of alpha particles and beta particles in the last class. Okay, we cover how to find the alpha particles and beta particles. Now remember, initially you have only uranium. Uranium is a radioactive element. When it undergoes disintegration by the loss of 8 alpha and 6 beta particles, it gives a stable isotope of lead-82-206. Okay, let's suppose at a time of interval t, you have to, at a time interval t, let's suppose you have some rock or mineral in which how many grams of uranium is present? W grams. And how many grams of lead is present? Y grams. Okay, but we have to find the initial amount of uranium that to be calculated. Okay, but at a time of interval t, we know the weight of uranium, that is the W gram, along with lead, which is the Y gram. Okay, now the age of the rock, how to calculate? Again, the time period t is equal to 2.303 by lambda log of W naught by W. W naught is the initial weight of the uranium. Initial weight of the uranium means in the beginning, that is the T0. Okay, now the W is the weight of uranium after a certain time of interval t. That means at a time of interval t, the weight of uranium left will be W grams. Now let's suppose at a time interval t, how much of uranium will undergo decay? Let's suppose X grams of uranium undergo decay. That means initially you have how much of grams of uranium? W naught. Out of W naught, how many grams of uranium undergo decay? X gram. So how many grams of uranium will be left to? W gram. This will be at time interval t. Are you getting my pen? From here, shall I find the W naught? Yes, W naught will be equal to W plus X. Now how to find the X value? Because W value will be given in the question. Okay, at a time of interval t. But the X value we have to find. How to find the amount of uranium that will undergo decay at a time interval t? Let's suppose, if you see the stoichiometry here, 1 mole of a lead and 1 mole of a uranium. Okay, what is the weight of 1 mole of a lead? 206 grams of lead per 1 mole. What is the weight of uranium per mole? 238 grams. That means 206 grams of a lead was produced by how many grams of uranium? 238 grams of uranium. Now, how many grams of lead is obtained here? Let's suppose I am taking here Y gram. For the Y grams of lead to produce, how many grams of uranium I have to take? Y into 238 by 206. This is the weight of uranium to be decomposed in order to get the Y grams of the lead. How many grams of the lead? Y grams of the lead. So this is the weight of uranium that will undergo decay. That is nothing but X. So this is the value of X. After getting the value of X, W naught value equal to W should be given in the question. Yes, and we have to calculate the X value just now. Okay, W plus X will be W naught. So from here we can find the time period. Otherwise, there is one more alternative method to calculate the time period of the rock or mountain or mineral. Now here uranium 92-238 to give lead 82-206 by the emission of 8 alpha particle and 6 beta particles. Do you know alpha particle is nothing but a dipositive helium? So helium, that means helium is a noble gas. Helium is a which gas? Noble gas. After a certain time of interval, we can calculate the volume of helium gas collected at a given temperature and pressure. Okay, so from the volume of helium gas, if we consider as a ideal gas, from the ideal gas expression, shall we find the number of moles of helium produces? Yes, that will be equal to PV by RT. So we are calculating the number of moles of helium. Now as per standard condition, if you see, this is how many moles of uranium? 1 mole. How many moles of alpha? That is nothing but helium-2, 8 moles. That means 8 moles of helium gas produced by how many moles of uranium? 1 mole of a uranium. Actually, how many moles of uranium? How many moles of helium we have, let's suppose n moles of helium. To obtain the n moles of a helium, how many moles of uranium we have to require? Number of moles of helium upon 8. This is the number of moles of uranium. Number of moles of uranium. Are you getting my point? So number of moles of uranium undergo decay. That will be the number of moles of helium upon 8. This is the number of moles of uranium undergo decay. Now how much of uranium will be left after a time interval t? Now what is the weight of uranium? I told you W grams. Okay, given mass upon what is the molar mass of uranium? 238. This is the number of moles of uranium left at a time interval t. Number of moles of uranium left at a time interval t. How many number of moles of uranium undergo decay? N by 8. So total number of moles of uranium starting we have, that will be equal to N0 equal to Nt plus N helium by 8. After getting the total number of moles, that will be the initial, and number of moles left at a time interval t Nt. So shall we find the time period of a rock salt, time period of a rock or a mountain or a mineral? Are you getting my point? Now, there are some important relations I given here regarding the first order kinetics. Already we covered in the chemical kinetics. So first order kinetics, decay constant, rate constant formula lambda is equal to 2.303 by T log of N naught by Nt. The second formula half life period we know, and third formula number of amount of substance left after time interval T will be equal to initial amount into 1 by 2 to the power of n, where n is called number of half lives. How to find the number of half lives? Total time divided by half life. Total time divided by half life. And one more important formula, activity. Activity, that is the rate of a reaction, is the activity directly proportional to activity directly proportional to concentration of the radioactive substance. By removing the proportionality, I am writing the proportionality constant, that is called decay constant. Okay. Now here activity will be equal to, how to calculate the lambda? That will be 0.693 by T half. From here lambda will be equal to what? 0.693 by T50. How to find the number of atoms? How to find the number of atoms? First of all, we have to find the number of moles. How to find the number of moles? Given mass upon molar mass. So we will get number of moles of atom. Multiplied by Avogadro number, we will get the total number of atoms. Total number of atoms that are undergoing decay. After that, there are some time period relation. Time taken for the 25% of completion of a first order kinetics will be equal to 0.415 into T50. For 75% completion required 2 half lives. For 87.5% completion, nothing but 7 by 8 of the reaction get completed. So 3 times of the half life. Here 15 by 16 fraction of the reaction get completed. Are you getting my point? 4 into half life, 90% get completed. 10 by 3 times of the half life. Okay, 99%. 2 into 10 by 3, that will be 6.6. And 99.9% completion, almost to that. Actually this will be equal to 9.9 times of the half life. So we are equating to almost to 10. Are you getting my point? And 99.9 will be equal to 13.2 times of the half life. So these are the some important relations regarding the time period. Okay. Now there are some problems in the nuclear chemistry. So the fifth question here. What is the fifth question? Radioactivity is affected by temperature, pressure, electric magnetic field, and none of these. So here the nuclear reactions are unaffected by the external factors. Nuclear reactions are unaffected by the external factors. Question number 6. A radioactive nuclei emits the gamma radiation. When the during the radioactivity, gamma rays emitted, because during the nuclear reaction, what happens? Nuclear energy transition from higher energy state to lower energy. So during the radioactive disintegration, alpha beta particles and gamma radiation emitted. The gamma radiation is emitted because the nucleus will be initially present at higher energy level. So in order to to normal level, it has to lower some energy in the form of radiation. That is nothing but the gamma rays, gamma radiation. Question number 7. During the alpha decay, what happens? We know when N/P ratio is low. When the N/P ratio, that is the neutron to proton ratio, is low, then to increase N/P ratio, alpha emission occurs. Which emission occurs? Alpha emission occurs. Let's suppose, simple example I am telling, uranium 90 to 238. When it emits one alpha particle to give thorium 90 and mass number 234. Remember, whenever there is a emission of one alpha particle, atomic number decreases by 2 units and mass number decreases by 4 units. Now in the left hand side, if you see the N/P ratio, that is the 146 divided by 92, which will be equal to 1.58 N/P ratio in the uranium 90 to 238. On the right hand side, thorium 90 to 234, N/P ratio will be 144 divided by 90, which is equal to 1.6. What happens here? 1.58 N/P ratio increases to 1.6 by the emission of alpha particle. That means here what happens? N/P ratio, when N/P ratio is low, then to increase the N/P ratio, so N/P ratio increase, alpha emission occurs. Now the question number 8. Which of the following process causes the emission of X-rays? That is the K electron capture. K electron capture. In the last class I explained how the nuclei gets stable by the N/P ratio. When the N/P ratio is very high, to reduce the N/P ratio, what are the conditions? When the N/P ratio is low, to increase the N/P ratio, what are the conditions? Okay. Now the next question. Which of the following is produced when a positron and electron collide? That is the gamma radiation. Question number 10. Polonium 84-210 emits one alpha particle. Okay. Polonium, atomic number given 84, mass number given 210, which will undergo alpha decay. So alpha particle having the atomic number 2 units and mass number 4 units. That is the helium nuclei. So out of the 84 atomic number of polonium, if you decrease the 2 units, you will get the atomic number 82, nothing but the lead. And out of 210, if you reduce the mass number 4 units, then you will get the 206. Do you know, in the periodic table, carbon, silicon, germanium, tin and lead, these are corresponding to group number 14. Otherwise 4th A group. Do you know oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, polonium, these are called chalcogens, group number 16, otherwise 6th A group. So this is a 6th A group, polonium, from which you will get the daughter element, that is the lead, which is a group number 4, 4th A group. Are you getting my point? Now the next question number 11. Calculate the average lifetime. What is that average lifetime formula? Average lifetime value reciprocal of the decay constant. Okay, 1 upon, what is the decay constant formula? 0.693 divided by T50. Okay, which is equal to 1.44 T50. This is a very important formula. So the average life value equal to 1.44 into T50. 1.44 into what? T50. Okay, from here 1.44 into, what is the half life given? 1650 years. 1650 years. So you will get the final answer 2376 years. 2376 years. Are you getting my point? Now the question number 12. 50 grams of a radioactive element has a half life 14 hours. If you take the 2 grams of such same sample, then what will be its half-life? Same. That means half-life period for a first order kinetics is what? Independent on the initial concentration of the substance. Do you know the radioactive disintegration follows which order kinetics? First order kinetics. What is the half-life period for a first order kinetics? T50 0.693, that is the ln 2 divided by lambda. That means the initial concentration independent, half-life will be independent. That means what will be the half-life? What will be the initial half-life when you take the 50 grams, which is equal to 14 hours. Now also if you take the 2 grams, even though if you take the 2 grams, the half-life will be same. Okay. Now the question number 13. In the question number 13, half-life period of a radioactive substance will be 1600 minutes. Then what fraction of a substance will be remaining after 64 minutes? Now what is the total time given here? 6400 minutes. What will be the T50 given here? 1600 minutes. Okay. How to find the number of half-lives? Total time by T50. Total time 6400 minutes divided by 1600 minutes. So there are 4 half-lives. So the radioactive substance left at a time interval t, Nt will be equal to initial concentration of radioactive substance into 1 by 2 to the power n. So n0 into 1 by 2 to the power 4. So what fraction of a substance will be left? To 1 upon 16 times the substance of initial concentration of a substance will be left. So the concentration of a radioactive substance left will be equal to n0 into 0.0625. This is the fraction. Okay, 0.0625. Okay. Now the question number 14. In this question number 14, the activity of a sample of a radioactive element A of a atomic mass 100 is 6.02 Curie. Its decay constant will be equal to 3.7 into 10 to the power 4 per second. Then find the initial mass of the sample. Now remember, first of all, what is the formula to calculate the activity? Activity will be equal to decay constant multiplied by the number of atoms. Okay. Now the activity will be equal to decay constant nothing but 0.693 by T50. Okay. Into how to find the number of atoms? Given mass divided by molar mass. Okay. Multiplied by Avogadro number. I am taking 6.02 only. Avogadro's number. Now here what is the activity given here? 6.02 Curie. Do you know 1 Curie? How many DPS? 1 Curie will be equal to 3.7 into 10 to the power 10 disintegration per second. Okay. Now what is the activity now given? 6.02 Curie. 6.02 into 1 Curie nothing but 3.7 into 10 to the power 10 DPS, disintegration per second, is equal to 0.693 by T50. Okay. Here actually the decay constant, that means already the value lambda given. So need not write in terms of half-life. What is the lambda given here? 3.7 into 10 raised to 14. What is the given mass? That is to be calculated. What is the molar mass? Here given atomic mass, that will be 100 multiplied by Avogadro number. Are you getting my point? Here 6.02 gets cancelled, 3.7 gets cancelled. After simplification, the weight of the sample will be 10 raised to minus 15 grams. 10 to the power minus 15 grams. Are you getting my point? Now the question number 15, 1 gram of a radium of atomic mass 226 has an activity nearly 1 curie. Then find the half-life of the radium. Now I explained how to calculate the activity. Activity will be equal to decay constant multiplied by number of atoms. Now activity will be equal to 0.6. Here decay constant is not given, half-life is given. That's why decay constant lambda will be equal to 0.693 by half-life into given mass divided by molar mass multiplied by Avogadro number. Okay. Now what is the activity given here? 1 curie. Just now I told you what is the 1 curie. 1 curie will be equal to 3.7 into 10 to the power 10 dps, disintegration per second. Are you getting my point? Now here 1 curie activity, that is 3.7 into 10 to the power 10 dps, will be equal to 0.693. Okay, whole divided by now here whole divided by, we have to find the half-life. So T50 to be calculated. What will be the mass is given here? 1 gram. And what will be the molar mass here? Atomic mass, that will be 226 multiplied by Avogadro number. So here the half-life period will be equal to 0.00499 into 10 raised to 13 seconds. Okay. Now if you want to convert into years, so T50 will be equal to 0.00499 into 10 raised to 13. So do you know 1 year is equal to 365 days, 1 day will be 24 hours, 1 hour will be 60 minutes, 1 minute will be 60 seconds. So finally your answer will be 1582 years. Final answer will be how many years? 1582 years. Okay. Now the next question, strontium atomic mass 90 shows beta decay and its half-life period will be 28 years. Find the activity. Just now I told you what is the formula to calculate the activity. Activity equal to decay constant multiplied by number of atoms. Decay constant will be 0.693 whole divided by T50, that is the half-life. What is the half-life is given here? 28 years. So what I am doing, 28 into 1 year is equal to 365 days. 1 day will be 24 hours and 1 hour will be 60 minutes and 1 minute will be 60 seconds. Okay. Into what is the mass of the sample? 1 gram. Molar mass is given 90 into Avogadro number. Are you getting my point? So you will get overall 5.25 into 10 to the power 12 disintegration per second. Okay. Now if the question is calculate the activity in terms of curie, so we know 1 curie, how many dps? 3.7 into 10 raised to 10 dps. If you divide the dps, if you divide the 5.25 into 10 raised to 12, instead of 1 dps, shall I write the 1 curie upon 3.7 into 10 raised to 10 dps. So overall you will get 141.89 curie. This is the unit for radioactivity. Are you getting my point? Now the next question, that is the question number 17. The counting rate observed from a radioactive source at t0 seconds was 1600 counts per second. That means this is the initial concentration of the radioactive species, that will be the 1600 countings per second. When time period t0. When the time period 8 seconds, how many counts are there? 100 count. This will be the n, that will be the 100. Are you getting my point? Now the question is, the counting rate observed as counting per second at t 6 seconds. We have to find the number of atoms n at a time interval 6 seconds. First of all, I am writing lambda is equal to what? 2.303 by t. What is the t here? 8 seconds. Log of n naught by n. Okay. Let's suppose this will be the equation 1. Okay. Now the second case, t0 n naught will be same 1600. Okay. Now the number of countings we have to calculate at a time interval 6 after 6 seconds. We don't know what is the n value. So from here also we are writing one more equation, lambda is equal to 2.303 by, now the time period will be 6 seconds. Log of n naught value will be 1600. Now the n value to be calculated. Okay. Now here LHS is same, so RHS must be same. So from here 2.303 divided by 8 logarithm of 16. Log 16 nothing but 4 into log 2, that is the equation number 1. From the equation number 2, 2.303 divided by 6 logarithm of 1600 by n. Okay. Now here 2.303 gets cancelled. 4 ones are 4 2s are gets cancelled. 2 ones are 2 3s are gets cancelled. By cross multiplication you will get 3 times of log 2 will be equal to log of 1600 by n. Okay. Now this will equal to log of 2 cube will be equal to log of 1600 upon n. Okay. On both sides if you cancel the logarithm you will get 8 will be equal to 1600 upon n. So n will be equal to 1600 upon 8. So n will be equal to 200 countings. 200 countings. Option number C. Option number C. Okay. Now the question number 18. A wooden article and freshly cut the tree show activity 7.6 counts per minute per gram and 15.2 counts per minute per gram of carbon, and half-life of carbon 14 is given 5760 years. Find the age of the article. Okay. Now here what happens? Rate of disintegration, rate of reaction, nothing but rate of disintegration at any instant is directly proportional to number of atoms present at that instant. Okay. Now R naught initial n naught, R directly proportional to n. From here shall I write directly R naught by R will be equal to n naught by n. What is the initial fresh wood? That will be the 15.2 counts. And what will be the wooden article countings? 7.6. So you will get the 2. Okay. Now what is the time period? T will be equal to 2.303 by lambda into logarithm of n naught upon n. Okay. Now here T will be equal to 2.303 by what will be the lambda? Lambda will be the decay constant. So lambda will be equal to 0.693 by T50. We know. Are you getting my point? So here what I am writing? Instead of lambda, I am writing 0.693 divided by T50. T50 nothing but 5760 years. Okay. Here shall I write log 2. So log 2 value 0.3010 into 2.303. That will be 0.693. And again in the denominator there is a 0.693. That will be cancelled. So finally time period will be 5760 years. Are you getting my point? 5760 years. Now the question number 19. In the question number 19, a sample of uranium-238 half-life 4.5 into 10 to the power 9 years ore is found to contain uranium 23.8 grams and lead 20.6 grams. Find the age of the ore. Find the age of the ore. First of all, what is the lambda? 0.693 by T50. What is the 50 T50 of a uranium, which is equal to 4.5 into 10 to the power 9 years. So this is the lambda value. So you will get per year. Okay. Now how many number of moles of lead formed? Number of moles of lead formed will be equal to, what is the mass of the lead here? 20.6 grams. What is the molar mass of the lead here? 206 gram per mole. So finally how many moles of lead will be obtained from the uranium? 0.1 moles. And how many number of moles of uranium? Number of moles of uranium left. How much of uranium will be left after decay? That is equal to 23.8 grams left. Okay, divided by molar mass of uranium 238 gram per mole. So you will get finally 0.1 moles. Okay, so this is the number of moles of uranium left. Okay, now I want to find the total number of moles of uranium initially. At T0, what is the total number of moles of uranium? Total number of moles of uranium will be equal to number of moles of lead formed plus number of moles of uranium left. That is the total uranium. So what is the total number of moles of uranium? 0.1 plus 0.1, that will be the 0.2. This is the initial total number of moles of what? Uranium. Okay. Now what will be the time period? We have to calculate the time period. Time period T is equal to, again, 2.303 divided by lambda logarithm of N naught, that is the initial concentration, divided by N, concentration at a time interval T. Okay. Now 2.303 divided by, what is the lambda here? 0.693. 0.693 divided by 4.5 into 10 raised to 9. 4.5 into 10 raised to 9 into logarithm of initial concentration 0.2. What is the concentration of uranium left after time interval T? 0.1. So this will be log 2. Again this will be cancelled out. You will get 4.5 into 10 raised to 19 years. Are you getting my point? So this is the time period of the ore. Time period of the age of the ore. Okay. Now the question number 20. The half-life of a radioactive decay C14 was 5730 years. An archaeological artifact containing wood had only 80% of C14. That means out of 100% at a time of interval T, only 80% of C14 will be present. That means C14 undergo decay. Are you getting my point? That means, shall I take the initial concentration of C14 will be 100 because percentage is given. At a time period T, what is the percentage of C14 present in the plant? That will be the 80. So what will be the time period? Before going to that, what will be the lambda? That will be 0.693 by T50. What will be the T50 given here? 5730. 5730. Are you getting my point? Now here, what is the time period? T is equal to 2.303 divided by decay constant lambda logarithm of N naught divided by N. Okay. Now here 2.303 divided by, what is the lambda value? Shall I write 0.693 into 5730. Okay. Into logarithm of 100 upon 80. 100 upon 80, nothing but 1.25. So the log 1.25 value given in the question as a 0.0969. As a 0.0969. Okay. So finally the time period will be equal to 1845.37 years. So the option nearly 1845 years. Are you getting my point? Now the next question number 21. In this question number 21, a closed vessel with a rigid wall containing 1 mole of uranium 92-238. This is the 1 mole. And 1 mole of air at 298 Kelvin. Considering the complete decay of uranium 92-238 to lead 82-206. Then the ratio of the final pressure to the initial pressure of the system at 298 Kelvin. This is the previous advanced question. Okay. Now first of all, I am trying to write the equation. What is the parent nuclei? That will be the uranium 92-238. And what is the daughter element here? That will be the lead, that is 82-206. Now here, let's suppose we don't know how many number of alpha particles and beta particles are emitted. Let's suppose I am using X alpha particles and Y beta particles. Remember, beta particle nothing but a electron. No, alpha particle nothing but helium. So helium is a noble gas, so it may exert pressure. So that's why we have to find the number of moles of helium. Once we know the number of moles of helium, then we can find the pressure. Are you getting my point? Now here we are equating the atomic number as well as mass number on both sides. On the left hand side, mass number 238 will be equal to right side 206 plus 4x. From here x value 8. That means 8 alpha particles. How many alpha particles? 8 alpha particles. Now the next equation, atomic number, left side 92, right side 82 plus 2 into x minus y. Okay. From here if you simplify, you will get the y value 6. That means beta particles are 6. How many beta particles? 6 beta particles. So overall, once again I am writing the equation, that is uranium 92-238, which will undergo decay to give stable nuclei lead 82-206 plus how many alpha particles? 8. And how many beta particles? 6. Now remember, initially T0, there will be no any gaseous product. Okay, no any gaseous product. At a time interval T, how many moles of helium gas will form? 8 moles. Okay. Now tell me, when time T0, how many number of moles are present in the container? In the given container, 1 mole of a uranium. Uranium is a solid, so there is no any pressure, and 1 mole of air is present. That means initially you have only 1 mole. Okay. At a time interval T, how many number of moles will be present? 1 mole of air plus 8 moles of noble gas. So total how many moles will be present? 9 moles. We know from ideal gas equation PV is equal to what? nRT. Okay. Now here rigid vessel volume is constant, temperature is constant, gas constant is itself constant. So pressure directly proportional to number of moles. Pressure directly proportional to number of moles. In the question, final pressure to initial pressure. Final pressure P final by P initial is equal to N final by N initial. What is the final number of moles? 9. Initial number of moles? 1. So our answer will be 9:1. 9:1. Are you getting my point? Now the question number 22. In this question number 22, calculate the binding energy per nucleon of boron 11. If the atomic mass of boron 11 is 11.00931 AMU. So this is the actual mass of the boron given. Now in this question, the mass of proton is not given, but actually it should be given. What is the mass of each proton? 1.07276 AMU. And what is the mass of each neutron? That will be equal to 1.08665 AMU. Okay. Now in boron, that is the atomic number 5 and mass number 11. So there are 11 nucleons. Out of 11, 5 protons and 6 neutrons. Now we have to find the mass defect. Mass defect will be equal to m dash minus m. M dash will be equal to sum of the total mass of the nucleons. So there are total 11 nucleons. Out of 11, 5 nucleons will be protons. So each proton mass will be 1.007276 into 5. Okay. Plus here How many neutrons will be there? 6. Into each neutron 1.008665. So this is the total mass of the nucleus minus of what is the mass actually given here? 11.00931. It is given in the question. So finally what will be the mass defect will be 0.07906 atomic mass units. This is the first part. After getting the mass defect, so in the starting I explained 1 AMU value corresponding to 931.5 mega or million electron volt. Now 0.07906 AMU corresponding to how much of binding energy? So binding energy will be equal to 0.07906 into 1 AMU corresponding to 931.5 mega or million electron volts. So finally you will get to 73.644 mega or million electron volt. Remember one more important one here. The question is average, that is a per nucleon. So we are calculating for total 11 nucleons. For each nucleon, what is the binding energy? That is called average binding energy. Nothing but the total binding energy divided by total mass number, sum of the protons and neutrons. So the binding energy total 73.644 divided by what is the total number of nucleons? That will be 11. So finally average binding energy value 6.69 mega or million electron volts. Are you getting my point? And one more last question, that will be the one of the hazards of nuclear explosion is the generation of strontium-90 and its subsequent incorporation in bones. This nuclide has the half-life of 28.1 years. Suppose 1 microgram was absorbed by a newborn child. Okay, how much of strontium-90 will be remaining in his body after 20 years? Remember, initially how many micrograms of strontium is there? 1 microgram. Okay, 1 microgram to become 1/2 microgram, that will be 0.5 microgram. One half-life will be required, that is called 28.1 years. Okay, but the question is the amount of strontium after 20 years. That means it is not what means before the half-life period, the question. That means if the half-life is completed, then you will get the 0.5 micrograms. That means before half-life means you will get more than 0.5 micrograms. Are you getting my point? Micrograms. Now here lambda will be equal to 2.303 divided by time period log of initial concentration N0 divided by concentration at a time interval Tn. So what is the lambda? Nothing but 0.693 by T50. What is the T50 given for strontium? 28.1 years will be equal to 2.303. Now at what time period is asking? After 20 years. That will be the time 20 years. Log of what will be the initial concentration? 1 microgram and final concentration to be calculated. Are you getting my point? So from here if you simplify, you will get the final concentration left after 20 years 0.61 microgram. Are you getting my point?